time to armor up and level out. Listen up and hear what we're about.
Welcome back to Armor Radio. Josh here with Dusty.
Hey, man.
Welcome.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
It is.
No mics today.
I know. What do I do with my hands?
Are we actually
What?
we're live, Jeremiah?
What do I do with my hands? The director needs to give us some direction. Tell us what to do and all the things. I don't know. Can we talk without mics in front of? Are humans, are we allowed to talk without a mic?
I don't know. I guess we're going to find out.
We can give it a try. And then we're talking about Decades of Fitness, our second part in the series. The first time we talked about what it was like to go from your 20s to your 30s. This time we're talking
Glory
about...
days.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about the 40s, and this might be... I think this is where both of us are at.
Yeah. Sure is, man.
That kind of hurts my heart a little bit to say that out loud. You don't... Yeah. Does that get to you at all?
40. Well, I think that's the biggest thing about the 40s is, do you really feel different, or is it more like in your mind that it's that age where you start to think that, oh, I'm getting older. I'm not as young as I used to be. But physically, are we changing that much?
Is it a thought?
Yeah.
That's what you mean?
I think for myself, I've found it to be more of a mental battle that I'm dealing with than physical. It's almost like I put a lot of these things in my head of oh, well, I shouldn't be as strong as I was at 35, or I shouldn't be training as hard as I was training.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say that I feel like we were conditioned from, and I know specifically talking about me, in growing up with the family and everything else, it was you're a train wreck when you're 40, you should just expect it. And I kept thinking 39, 38, I'm is it just that big cliff? And as soon as I'm 40, I just walk over and that's it? Because I don't felt like I ever hit that.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of it has to do with how you live in your 20s and 30s. That determines how you really feel when you hit your 40s. But
let me ask you a question about that. So do you mean how you live as in, did I train, so period, or if I did a whole bunch of excessive partying and all these things and never really stopped?
Well, and I think even what your nutrition, was it you just ate whatever you wanted whenever you wanted?
Yeah.
And did you not sleep? And I think all those things really compound on you, throughout your life.
When do you think that starts compounding? Because here's what I've always told athletes. I've always said, up until you're about 22, you can probably do whatever you want. But about 22, you need to make some decisions.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you say that that's about clear?
I would say definitely the 22 to 25 range.
Okay.
At 25, if you haven't started implementing some things into your life, you're definitely setting yourself up for later in life to be maybe dealing with some things that you might potentially could avoid.
Here's what I was doing when I was so it was competitive bodybuilding around that time.
Yeah.
And had the macros that you had to hit. Mm-hmm. And the idea was you'd eat the chicken and the broccoli, or the fish and the whatever. It seemed to be broccoli. And you would do that, and it was every 2 hours. In between that, I would often have another meal, just trying to get as big as possible of usually KFC or mint chocolate chip ice cream.
Wow.
Up until about 22, trying to get just as big as you possibly could, in the total wrong way to do it. Mm-hmm. Not scientifically based at all, just what I was told off season, get as big as possible.
Bro science.
So it was still, exactly. it was eat the things you were supposed to eat, but the in between was how you really made the gains. And you totally did in terms of 100% body fat.
Weight, yeah.
Yeah, and then you learned that the more of that you gained, the harder you had to diet, and that's probably the very wrong way to do that, obviously.
Yeah.
But like I said, it was pretty simple in terms of taking it off. Today, 20 some years later, I couldn't imagine gaining that much extra body fat and then having to peel that away. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't imagine starting that right now. So that being said, what are some things that you would tell with somebody who might be starting their journey if they're in their 40s and they're what they would consider out of shape? Yeah. Where would they start?
Yeah, I would start with with the training. It's like build some consistency in your training
So
routine.
not worry about the diet.
Well, I think I wouldn't say not worry about it, but I think first you got to get moving, and I think it's easier to like get moving than it is to overhaul your nutrition.
Yeah.
So get some type of victory. Now if you feel like maybe at one point you have already kind of understand what your nutrition needs to look like, then maybe it might be easier to start there. But I think you got to get a win and get moving in a direction. So typically it's like get moving, build some consistency there. Then that's where I would really start to look at the nutrition. And I think like at 40s, I think at any age, sleep is important. But man, I find that like sleep is almost elusive, like, in your 40s.
Explain that to me a little bit.
Just because of, I think, all the variables that you're juggling. One of the hardest things I find at the stage of life that I'm in is, I'm going from work to practices or work to games. And sometimes that looks like I'm getting home at, 8:30, 9 o'clock, or maybe even later at night. Oh, wow. And it's hard to come in and knowing that like I got to get up at 4:30, you almost, when I feel pressured to get in bed and sleep, I don't sleep. Like I can't rest because it's almost like I'm putting pressure on myself to get sleep because I know I've already missed my kind of window of time.
100%. Because you want to wind down.
Yeah, it's like I don't get the luxury of getting in bed at sometimes at 8 o'clock and just slowly unwinding. It's like you got to get in bed and get to bed and get to sleep.
It's a goal instead of a luxury.
Right. Yeah. And so when that's the case, it's like I just don't rest as well as when I do have the opportunity to kind of ease into it.
That's a great point. And for those of us that are in that same section of life, how do you allot for that? Do you just kind of take it as it goes through the week and then try to bank sleep on the weekend? Do you try to steal sleep when you can get it? Like midday, I take a 20-minute nap. Like what are your habits to surround that?
So I try to keep my bedtime and awake time very close to the same, even on the weekends. Yeah. It's like the routine. I thrive in a routine, so it's like. I try to keep it the same.
Let me ask you one question about that. You said you thrive in a routine. Was it like that when you were in your 20s?
No.
Was it like that when you were in your 30s?
No, I don't think it really got like that until like kids,
Do you think that it's something that was always within you and you had to discover it? Or do you think that it's like something you had to battle and you just do it because you have to?
No, I think it was always there. And I think earlier in my life, it was definitely something that I lacked that discipline,
But once you found it, you liked it.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
And I just didn't know, because I wouldn't say that I grew up without like routine. It was like we had bedtime. I had a bedtime and kind of that sort of thing growing up. But as a young adult, I didn't think about it.
Do you think that it's something that was like a rebellion? Like you just wanted to not be as predictable and you thought it was maybe cool? Or it was never presented to you that it would be so beneficial to have one?
Yeah, I don't think I understood the importance of even sleep. Sleep was always kind of one of those things like you got to do it.
Yeah.
I didn't see it as like this very beneficial recovery, type aspect of my life. And a lot of times I would just try to push through to see how, long I could go and how little of sleep that, and almost as like that was something to be proud of, when it's just stupid,
If muscle gain is the goal or even just performing at your best.
Yeah. I mean cognitively, it's like you can't even think when you're, that tired.
Yeah. Before we even started, you mentioned magnesium in terms of before bed to help with sleep.
Yeah.
Are there any other things that you do sort of like part of your habit or your routine that will help with that?
I always take magnesium about 30, 40 minutes before bed.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we have a red light that's right over our bed. So
red light's on.
I kind of turn the red light on. I'll do a little bit of reading and that just unwinds me.
Okay.
And typically I like get to the point where I can barely hold my eyes open.
You're not a fiction guy, so you're probably reading nonfiction before you go to bed? Or am I right, or is that?
Yeah, nonfiction.
And I ask because there's
Anything
just a lot of
leadership oriented,
Okay.
you know.
But you can get your mind into like a study material before bed and still go to sleep?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So red light, do you read a book or do you read a screen?
Yeah, a book. So I try to, that's one thing that, you know, about the time that I do the magnesium, I might like check my phone an hour or so before bedtime, but I really try to stay away from it because it's even like, you know, you pick up your phone before bed and maybe you get a text that's just got something that gets your mind going, then it just makes it, or looking at an email. So I try to like not do that stuff after say like around 7:30.
That's great.
Put my phone on airplane mode and
yeah, that's great.
You know, do a book.
What about food? So what's the 3, 2, 1? You stop food 3 hours before, you stop water 2 hours before, you stop electronics 1 hour before, or lights 1 hour before. It's something to that degree. Are you that strict with the food?
Well, that's another one of those variables, especially with games and practices 100%. And all those things. Like, yes, when it's possible, I like to eat dinner, you know, like 5:30, 6 o'clock. Any later than that, and it's because of, you know, something I got held up or I had to go right in and go to practice.
5 o'clock dinner, man. That's like decades of fitness. Sounds like we're in like the 80s decades of fitness here. You're like, wow, 5 o'clock. I haven't seen a 5 o'clock meal in a long time.
That's kind of how we roll. You got practices and things starting at like 6:30, so it's like you gotta. I would prefer to eat my meal like before than coming in at 8:30 and be eating, you know, at 8:30 or 9 o'clock.
Oh wow! See, I would be the opposite because I'll be hungry again before I would go to bed, or at least think I was hungry.
Yeah, I can typically do pretty good with that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Wow, that's interesting. Okay, so there's things that'll surround the sleep. You try to eat hours before bed.
Yeah.
You try to get the light at least dim to a red light, and you take magnesium, and then you try to preserve your sleep time and your wake time. And now you do that more since you're into your 40s.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, 100% more. I think that bedtime routine it's very critical because you got to be intentional about it. You know, and if you got kids, it's like that is a big victory for the day. Is like getting those kids into bed. You know, so once you get to that point, it's kind of like it's our time to talk and just kind of hang out and catch up. And then just that time to really unwind. So, you know, if we can get everybody kind of settled in by 8:30, that's a big deal. Really good, yeah.
That's a big deal. So if your sleep has changed in terms of you're trying to protect the sleep time and then the wake time, what about your nutrition? What's changed about your nutrition since you turned 40 and then in a decade of fitness that surrounds that?
I would say my nutrition is not that different in my 40s than it was in my 30s. You know,
are there foods that you figure out that you don't do as well on? Like, and I don't mean like maybe taste, but you know, like, oh man, oatmeal doesn't work all of a sudden, or and that could be just you've overindulged on that one food for too long, and we've seen those things where you almost get like a food allergen.
Yes.
But is there anything that you see that creeps up where you're like, this is better?
Yeah, I personally haven't. I mean, I keep a pretty wide variety of food in my diet.
Yeah. But you're good at keeping the caloric content down.
Yes.
You stay very lean.
Yeah.
So even though you have a pretty diverse menu, you still have the ability, which I think it's rare. I think most people struggle with that.
Yeah.
I keep mine very constricted simply because I don't want to color outside of those lines.
Yeah.
But you have more control. You can actually look at the big menu and not do it.
Yeah, and
that's impressive.
I think that comes from, you know, I tracked for a long time, and I think that helped me to really just kind of see parameter-wise, like what I could get, what I could eat, and portion sizes and things like that. But I mean, there's really not anything that I know. I can definitely tell you that I do not do good on alcohol.
Yeah. When you drink it.
Yes. Yeah, and that I don't drink it a lot, but and primarily because like it just I can't sleep.
Do you think that's because you don't drink it a lot? Which is
I mean,
probably
could be.
a good thing.
Yeah, could be.
Probably a good thing.
It's just one of those things, like, I didn't notice that.
Okay.
I would say, like, 5, 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just because I didn't have the even the awareness to notice.
Didn't
but
even want to notice.
It's like now I notice that so
Okay.
much more.
Yeah.
So,
But no other certain food groups or anything that you've included that you've discovered that you were like, oh man, this is a game changer at 40 and improves digestion or anything like that?
no, not really.
No.
I mean, like I say, my diet is pretty consistent in now as it was, say, 10, 15 years ago.
In keeping to the macros that you've established now, we're talking about establishing something that you would have done.
Yeah.
Gosh, it could have been decades before that you've gotten good at it. But in keeping in terms of your macros, do you think that a lot of that comes with having a busy schedule? So, and what I mean is, it's like you don't have time to sit there and think about all this stuff. You have to get it done.
Yeah.
And that actually lends itself. Other athletes may say, I'm too busy to do this. I feel like when I see you, you're so busy that you force that, and that helps you.
Well, I have to. I have to plan it. You kind of say to me, I'm always eating when you see me.
Yeah, kind of,
and I kind of have it in. I just have like my certain times, and I have my certain meals that if I plan those out days or the day before, and that way, like when I walk into work, I've got my game plan.
Yeah.
With the exception of dinner, like I've got my.
But I think that
my
lends
game plan.
itself to you being able to stay fit and stay very active and perform really well, is that you are busy, so you are forced to plan it, and then you use that sort of constricted schedule where you don't have a lot of time to make sure that you dial in, not as an excuse to color outside of the lines.
Yes, and I think it's just being more proactive about and intentional about your meals rather than reactive, and then you're kind of like you didn't plan, and now you're just kind of rolling with the punches. I think that's where people kind of get in trouble, especially if you're in a career or position where you're doing lunches or you're going out, and so you kind of end up not really knowing specifically where you're going to be or what you're going to be eating, and I think that sometimes can be a little tricky. So, for me, I always have my breakfast.
Okay.
I have that, make that the night before, and then have my game plan for whatever I'm doing for lunch. And
if your nutrition is pretty dialed in on that, and in terms of you prepare well, your macros are still close to what they were, you've already practiced all of that, what changes about the training once you turn 40?
I would say, I think I'm more. I definitely listen to my body more now in my 40s, and I think in my 30s, I rarely took a rest day. I mean, I would train, and even as sports started to pick up for my boys, I would if that meant I had to get to the gym at 5 in the morning, I was not going to miss my training session. And I think now I still train. I'm still training, just as hard and heavy as I was, but I allow life to happen more. It's like if we got something going on a Saturday morning, I'm not getting up at 4:30 to go get that workout. Yeah. I feel like I'm just at that point in my life. I've banked a lot of fitness, at this point, and it's going to be okay if 1 day or 2 days, I'm doing something that's non-gym related. So I just give myself a little more freedom, on that. That's like, hey, it's okay. I'm going to get at minimum, probably 4 days.
But your fitness has not fallen off when you get to the workout.
No.
So you work out about a minimum of 4.
Yeah.
So let's say that you missed a day here or there, whatever that could be, which sounds healthy. And then you roll in. It's not like the fitness has plummeted because you've missed that day. Do you feel like it may even be more beneficial?
100%. And I think that's one of the things that I kind of look back at my 30s and go, man, I wished I had maybe listened to my body a little bit more, rather than thinking that if I didn't get in there, that it was going to derail my progress, So I think it's definitely, I would like to think that it's maturity, in just that I'm wiser.
Forced maturity, like you got other things and you accepted that, and then it ends up being better in the long
Or
run.
just kind of changing, movements. It's like I've been box squatting for like 2 months.
Okay.
And just because of my knees.
Yeah.
And just been doing some different variations of squatting.
Yeah.
And I think in my 30s, there's no way I was going to.
You'd have forced it.
I was going to, I'm going to
forced
train
it.
through this.
Yeah, 100%.
And I'll deal with some pain and,
100%.
things like that. Whereas now I think the emphasis on just being healthier and pain-free I definitely hold it at a higher regard than.
So 40s versus the 30s, it's I may have pushed through this pain when I was in my 30s, but in my 40s, no.
Yeah, because I think you just have to ask yourself the question: is like, what do I gain by pushing through pain at this point, in my life?
That definitely sounds like a maturity thing.
And I want to, I think a lot of people say, well, I want to be doing this, in my 50s and 60s and 70s, and you want to be vibrant. And so if that's the case, then I think you have to make some changes every now and then, and you have to listen to your body a little bit more, and know that it's okay. It's not gonna set you back.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people.
And
that
if
need to hear
anything, it actually might. I think where I'm at right now today is I think it's actually set me up. There's a lot of things that I'm stronger on right now, and I think if I hadn't have taken that step back, I don't even know where my squat is right now, and nor do I really care. But I feel really strong.
That's a big deal.
And so
That's a big
it
deal.
had been a while since I had felt strong.
And we talk about this all the time, but to externally give this some sort of room to breathe, like you're doing what you do so that you can live outside of the gym and live what you want. So right now you can play with your boys, like you can do all of the things. You get to be a dad that like is truly involved with them instead of from afar. And all that really costs you is a squat here and there.
Yeah,
that's a pretty good deal. And then you said, I think what sounds really cool is that you feel strong, even into your 40s, and I think that's another important thing for people to understand, that the strength. I've not seen this, and I've not seen this in athletes that I've coached. I don't really see the strength go down.
No,
assuming that the volume is correct for the athlete and the lifestyle.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What have you changed in terms of movement selection besides just the box squat? So you mentioned box squat. Are there other movements that you've seen been like, I used to Olympic lift 5 days a week. Now I do it once, or something like that?
Yeah, I definitely have cut that back, my Olympic lifting for sure.
Is that did you cut it back because of the way that it made you feel, or did you cut it back because of time?
Probably a little bit of both. I would say more probably because of time than the way that it makes me feel. It's just you kind of like, you look at the window of time that you have and you prioritize, and it's like, that's gotta I don't have time to do all of that this week. So I try to incorporate one, Olympic lift in on a weekly basis.
Okay. Are those Olympic lifts highly technical? Is it, for instance, am I doing a full squat clean and jerk, or am I doing just a power clean?
Yeah, mostly power cleans, power snatches.
Got it.
If I do a jerk, it's like out of the rack. Not. I honestly cannot tell you the last time that I did a clean and a jerk.
Okay.
So
you're just taking out some complexity, but also a need to mobilize maybe for the entire lift, so there's a little bit less time dedicated to each training session.
For sure.
Okay. Training sessions in your 30s were how long?
Hour and a half, 2 hours sometimes.
Yeah, and what are they today?
Hour.
Yeah, so about an hour. So cut down about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
5 days roughly, maybe 4 days if something happens.
And I think that's another one of those hope maturity things, because I used to put so much pressure on myself to like get all the things done.
Sure.
And then I felt almost discouraged or defeated if I had to cut out something. Like I felt like I hadn't given it everything that I could. And so that pressure would, it just affected me in other areas that I don't think I really realized, but there was a lot of pressure put on me that was putting on myself, to perform and to get all this work done because that's what the program called for. Where again, now it's like, man, this is what a time I have.
Yeah.
And sometimes I have extra time, and then I might do something,
just for fun.
Different, that I want to just throw in. But what I was going to say is too, I think now one of the things that I notice because I have allowed myself some flexibility is I'm more motivated. Where used to, I think I was training was almost not like a job, but it kind of felt
close.
like.
Yeah, it's close. Business
that
as
I really
usual
didn't know why I was doing it. I might throw out some goals or something that I'm trying to do this or trying to do that. But I think it was, I found myself a lot more, I think, discouraged than encouraged at times, in my 30s, just because I put so much pressure on myself. And then I think because I was pushing always, it just led to some, just discouragement and defeat.
Is there a sort of pillar movements or, movements that I'm going to get this? And so let's say that you have, I really would love to get 5 days. 4 days is fine, but 3 is the bare minimum. And then along with that, it's like, and I make sure that I'm definitely deadlifting on the first day of the week.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely squat or, whatever it is. Are there certain movements that you make sure that you have?
Yes. I pretty much squat on Mondays.
Okay.
I'll do some sort of a press on Wednesdays.
Okay.
And then I'll do a pull on Friday.
Okay.
And then like my Tuesdays, like right now, I incorporate some type of like just CrossFit workout.
Okay.
And then I'll do, another kind of upper body, maybe like split on Thursday with some zone 1 cardio.
Yeah. Okay.
And then if I get a Saturday, Typically, if I do a Saturday, I do it with some buddies. And so we just kind of, throw a few things up on the board and
what looks good for that day.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's more about, hanging out.
But there's barbell lifts.
Yeah.
In the 40s, there's still barbell back squat or box squat.
I'm probably doing more, like safety bar squats now than I did.
Is that specifically to save the shoulders or just because you like it?
Yeah, I kind of just like the way it feels. That's just a little bit different variation.
Yeah.
It like mixes it up some. But I don't always do that. I'm just using it a little bit more than I used to, for sure.
A little bit more freedom in choosing your exercises is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I would imagine that in the 30s, conditioning was an everyday thing.
Yes.
Is conditioning an everyday thing now? Doesn't sound like it.
No, it's not. I get about 2 to 3 days a week.
Okay. And how would you rate your specific fitness as related to conditioning then and now? 30s to 40s.
Yeah. It's definitely I would still rate it very high.
Yeah.
It's not as high as it was in my 30s, only because I'm just I train it differently now and do a little less of. I would say it's more from a capacity standpoint.
I was going to say, like, if you compared movement to movement, maybe you're not as versed on doing 100 push-ups and 100 pull-ups.
Or like handstand push-ups and
take some of that away.
Ups.
Let's talk about something that's a little bit more low level. Like if I put you on a bike when you were 35 and I put you on a bike today, are you close to the same?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're talking about just heart rate, that's what we're talking about, not necessarily adding the skill level, which you might not be able to practice as much today.
Yeah.
But apples to apples heart rate, you probably still have about the same.
Yes.
Okay. What about stiffness, soreness, movement capacity in terms of your mobility? Have you had any sort of like, I used to be able to do this, and used to be able to lift my arm over my head, and now today I can't do anything like that. Has there any of those started to creep up? Or, same thing, injury?
No and no. No, okay. I would say if anything, like, when you talk about soreness and things, is like I'm a lot less sore now than I was in my 30s, just because of how I've adjusted the training volume.
Training volume and lifestyle.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. What about recovery methods that exist outside of the gym, like massage, your own personal mobility that you may do at home? Has that changed from 30s to 40s?
Yeah, I definitely don't do as much now as I used to.
Oh, wow. So you're less sore
Yeah,
and you do less outside of the gym. Wow. Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm not. It's not that I'm not doing any. It's just
Less.
I used to do all the things.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of, again, there's other things that are just from a priority standpoint, a little bit more important. And
Bang for your buck.
Yeah.
You don't have as much time. What do you do? So if I had, like, let's say when I'm 30, I have an hour for extra mobility. Now I got 10 minutes. What do you do?
There was a time, like in my 30s, where I would probably spend 30 to 45 minutes every single night doing some sort of like mobility WOD, ROM WOD, something like that.
Yeah,
some of those
for sure.
programs that I'm sitting there in front of the
Yeah.
computer going through the whole thing.
Oh, for sure.
Now it's like 10 minutes.
Okay.
8 to 10 minutes, and it could be, while my kids are working on some schoolwork, and I'm just sneaking some mobility in, in that time. Or if we're reading and I'm sitting in pigeon, So it's just kind of multitasking and incorporating some of those things in.
Is there a little bit of intentionality on just trying to like get on the ground more often, just to make sure?
Yeah.
Okay, I do that too.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm constantly like every opportunity that I get to get down on my knees and sit in saddle or something like that.
100%.
It's like 100%. I'm going to go for it and take it.
You try to steal those little opportunities.
Yes. Or even like just sitting. If it's in the living room and rather than sitting on the sofa, it's like I get in the floor and
100%.
Sit in different positions just to
100%,
kind of mobilize.
Do you find it, if you had, like I said, if you had like 10 minutes, is there one, like last time you mentioned frog, is that still one that you try to hit?
I like frog.
Okay.
I like saddle. I think physiologically I'm like just have tight hamstrings. So anytime I get to like, sit in like a straddle position or something and stretch my hamstrings, then I'm going for that. Or I'll sit in like a deep lunge and mobilize my ankles and knees and just kind of move around, just feeling things out, trying to see if I just find a spot that is just tight.
Yeah. Do you know how much time? This may be a harder question. How much time you spent in zone 2? Maybe when you're in your 30s versus now. Maybe it could just be something like much more now versus then. Do you find that that's beneficial or whatnot?
Much more now than I did then.
As opposed to back then, I would imagine it was high, zone 4, zone 5 kind of
I was
stuff.
almost always.
Yeah.
I mean, zone 2, I would have been like,
why am I doing this?
Yeah, I can train,
Yeah.
And so now it's like zone 2, I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
I'm in,
Okay.
So, yeah, I probably do 3 times as much zone 2 now as I did.
Do you think that that's would you think, if you could go back and tell your 30-year-old self, like, hey, man, this will make you feel better, would you? Or do you think that late 30s is a time to, like, just knock it out of the park and crush your soul every day and see what you got?
Well, I think, people have to come to the conclusion on their own.
Yeah. So even
I think
if you
everybody's
told yourself, you may not.
I don't know that it would have made a difference because probably somebody did tell me, and I was just like, you're just weak and old,
Okay.
So, I think it's just one of those things that like you'll get there, you'll evolve, and I think if it's one of those things that you stick with long enough, you're gonna face some of the same challenges. So it's like you're gonna have to figure out, and whether it's like you have kids or you never do, but you've got to, everybody's got a career and job. It's like you're gonna have responsibilities that you're gonna have to navigate and prioritize and figure out. So, I think it's just one of those things. The longer you do it, you just learn different lessons, every decade.
It sounds a lot like, too, some of the things that you're saying, and for both of us, I can speak for myself also, that we should have done a little bit of a better job maybe listening to the generation that was ahead of us. Is that the right way to say that? Because I think I've heard all of this before, but I didn't believe it until I got there.
100%. And I think now I probably pay more attention and watch people older than me just because I know like that day's coming. You know, it's like people in their 50s. Like I have a lot of athletes that I personally train in their 50s, and so I kind of get to see firsthand, some of the things that the challenges that they face, and lifestyle wise, it's a little different. Most of them, the kids are older, and so responsibilities are a little different. But I think I do pay more attention, to the generations ahead of me, just because I know it'll probably be here sooner than later.
So strength is pretty much the same. Mobility is pretty much the same. However, we want to define that mobility, flexibility. Nutrition has not fallen off the rails. Body fat seems good. Cardiovascular seems about the same. Is there anything else that you would tell our listeners that you need to look out to if you're creeping up into the 40s, or if you're already there, just be patient with this?
I would just say that if you're in your 30s and the 40s are, just around the corner, is I would say the things that you're doing now are really like they're going to shape how your 40s look. So as many of these things that you can kind of get nailed down, and if you're facing a particular challenge, if it's on the sleep side, that you maybe can navigate that to find a little bit more of a routine there, then I would definitely encourage to do it. And I would say if it's on the workout side, and maybe now you're at that point where you are training, a couple hours at the gym, and maybe that that's going to shift. I would say that like it's going to be okay. Like if you are training now and you've been at it for, if you've got a few years under your belt, you're gonna set yourself up in your 40s to be in a lot better position, and to just know that it's okay. Like if it doesn't go perfect, and if you have to cut a workout short or whatever, it's going to be okay. You're not going to digress, and it's not going to be the massive setback that sometimes I think, frame it out to be in our
It's
minds.
going to be okay.
It's going to be okay, and
That's a great theme. Dusty, thank you for your time.
Yeah, man.